Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast. You're watching This Week in Pirate Baseball. We'll be with you for the next half hour talking about the Pirates' 4-0 week, what a week it was, and just what the doctor ordered. You take a look at it in the midweek. The Pirates were able to sweep the season series from UNCW, winning 14-8, and then on the weekend against a very good Charlotte team, a team that, honestly, we felt like it would be a dogfight to win the series. And really, we only had one close game, which was surprising, but it was a great surprise. As you run ruled the 49ers twice, winning 12-2 in 7 innings on Thursday. You rallied from a 7-2, mid-inning deficit as you trailed 7-2 in the bottom of the 5th and won 12-9, and then you put up 11 in the first on Saturday, and then you go on to a comfortable 15-5 7-inning win. So quite the week. The Pirates are now inside the top 30 in the RPI, and we'll take a look at every aspect of it over the next half hour with former East Carolina pitcher John Wool White. Wool, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I'll go back to what Johnny Stat said early last week, that winning all 4 games was probably necessary, and it would help us the most. And you saw by the 20-plus jump in RPI, we're up to 29 after yesterday. So, excuse me, great week. And, Wilmington, same as Charlotte, very tough team. And it was a couple tough battles there late in the game, but the knockout punch was delivered by East Carolina on both occasions and put the games away. So very good week, and we look to move forward and beat Duke after that gut punch loss to them a couple weeks back, and then we have to play Tulane, and they're playing a little bit better. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and taking a look at that game against the Seahawks on Tuesday, you knew just with our pitching situation, it's all hands on deck. Some guys are going to have to step up and fill some roles that they had perhaps filled in the past at other schools, but not at East Carolina. And you had 3 of our starting pitchers this week out of the 4 games, guys that had not started a game for ECU: Frank Saccone, Luke Payne, and then also Joseph Webb. You had to like what you saw from all 3 of those guys. Saccone was a okay start, and then Luke Payne and Joe Webb, they had the benefit of pitching with big leads, and then were able to give you very solid starts considering they hadn't started, and you knew they wouldn't be extended.
Yeah, and on the Wilmington game, we did a piecemeal game, or Johnny Holstaff, whatever you want to call it. But Saccone, 2 1/3. Marley came in 1 2/3, and then D'Lo. D'Lo's been pitching a little bit more. Showed another pitch, although he did give up 3 earned runs in that game. And then Ethan Rose started his quiet, dominant week with a 1 2/3 innings pitch with 1 run, 0 earned runs. And then Hoagland came in and he got quickly removed. And then Alex Boucher came in 1 2/3 with 1 earned run, showing his curveball mainly. His fastball's in the upper 80s, but that curveball's a hammer curve, and that's his go-to pitch, and he was showing that. But offense, Wilmington made a good comeback, but the offense did eventually explode and took the win for us. It was a tough game. Wilmington's a tough team, but we were fortunate to get out of there with a win.
Yeah, no doubt. And Coach Godwin mentioned in the post game, actually after Saturday's game in the sweep of Charlotte, and he really believed it was that 6th spot, I guess it was, that we threw up in the bottom of the 8th after UNC Wilmington had rallied from an 8-1 deficit, made it 8-7, and
yeah.
The Pirate fans were definitely sweating a bit. But and rightfully so, with the way we had relinquished some leads this season. And man, that was awesome to see us bounce back and throw up that 6th spot and really put it away.
It did, and that's the knockout punch I was referencing that they also had to go up and do against Charlotte later in the weekend. But yeah, that was a big relief for the fans, like you mentioned. And then the 9th, we had a lot of room, and they did hit a home run in the 9th. Still, out there battling, but Heck of a game by Grady Lenahan, 3 for 5, home run, double, our 5 RBIs and 3 runs. So, and not to overshadow how well Davin Whitaker played that game as well. But yes, those two guys have been on fire lately, and they've been the catalyst for this winning streak.
Think about it from a pitching standpoint, and then we'll shift over and definitely talk about some of those guys that had tremendous weeks at the plate, and there were several of those, as you would guess, with the Pirates scoring 53 runs and had something like 56 hits on the week. So you consistently put together quality at bats, and that was awesome to see because you think back to the week against Old Dominion, William and Mary, and Penn. You had 3 games like that, and then all of a sudden you had the power outage where you got shut out by Penn. So it was nice to see that not happen. And Charlotte does have some quality arms, make no mistake about it, despite what the ECU offense did. And it was a combination, a little bit of everything. The Pirates swinging the bats well, and then you had some that were well placed, and ECU took advantage. So, but sticking with the pitching theme for a few more minutes, going into the week, if you'd have told us being down to just that one weekend starter that we began the season with, if Ethan Norby would only go 3 2/3, give up 7 runs, 6 earned on 9 hits against Charlotte, you would have felt, you'd have been ecstatic probably to get out of there with a series win, much less a sweep. And you'd have probably had your doubts on, like I was kind of referencing there, if you would even win the series. And to sweep, winning 2 in run rule fashion is just remarkable. It shows what the offense did and how much the bullpen stepped up.
Oh yeah, and the games on the weekend for Charlotte were Thursday, Friday, Saturday due to Easter Sunday, and the teams decided to keep their starters on 7-day rest. And so on Thursday they went with they went outside the box a little bit on their starters, and we actually saw something that changed our mind about Luke Payne at this point because he hasn't really done much this year, but he went out there and delivered a little bit. He showed something that we hadn't seen, and maybe why he went to Tennessee. And at this point in the season, when you lost one arm for the year already from the weekend rotation, that's a positive sign to see someone that can go out there and give you 4 or 5 innings a week. And look forward to seeing what he can do and if he can repeat what he did.
Yeah, I like that decision to go with Luke Payne. As we discussed off air, there was no doubt he has the stuff. He just hadn't put it together consistently. He had pitched 2 innings on opening weekend against Xavier, and we're discussing this pre-show as well. Since that point, those 2 innings against the Musketeers, he'd only pitched an inning and 2/3 across something like 4 appearances prior to getting the ball, and then he went 4 innings. And it wasn't all smooth sailing, but he handled the difficult situations well. 2 runs on 3 hits, striking out 6, and he was able to navigate fairly well around those 3 walks.
Yeah, I think was it the game that Jack saved a 1 run early in the first inning? But yeah, I mean he got out of that inning, no runs, started, kind of settled in a little bit. He had a little bit of traffic there, but he settled in, ended up with 6 Ks, and actually looked like a pitcher that could get out there and do something at this level. And you started seeing at moments why he was at Tennessee. I mean, he had that quality of an arm. So that's a very, very good. I can't understate that. I can't overstate it either. But yeah, he definitely showed something, and it makes me feel a lot better, especially after losing guys to injury right now. We don't even know at this point where some of the pitchers' injuries are. We just know they're not available at this point.
And kind of like I was saying a moment ago, as far as Luke Payne having the stuff and just needing to put it all together and show it. Um, we saw that, and like Coach mentioned in the post game, he definitely earned another start. He said, "I don't know when that will come, but he definitely earned another." And I loved it. I mean, Luke Payne, had been telling Coach apparently that he wanted more mound time, and so Coach told him on Tuesday night. He said he found out, I guess perhaps after that UNC Wilmington game, that he would be getting the ball on Thursday, so we could keep Ethan on his normal routine, and yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely delivered. But
Yeah, in my
and
head, I was thinking, and you guys know when we were talking in group chat that I was thinking he'd go an inning or two, and then Sean Jenkins would jump in there. Personally, that's what I thought might happen, but he pitched
yeah,
so well that was not necessary for anything like that to even occur. So, and then we had another pitcher had a great week. Joe Webb came in that game, inning and 2/3 and 5 Ks. So he
yeah,
was filthy in that first game against them.
yeah. Every out that he recorded was a strikeout, obviously. So
Yeah.
that was impressive. And remember, after struggling early in the season, wasn't his best outing there early on against Wilmington?
Yeah.
He
Yeah, that was yeah.
he really had their number. So
And
I'd
that's
have to go
why I
back.
think that now that you triggered that, that may be the reason I thought he pitched against Wilmington already this week when he didn't. So was that previous outing?
Right.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
something was in my head that he had pitched against Wilmington, but it was not this week. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Sorry. Yeah. I allowed that to confuse me. Yeah. That inning in 2/3 was on Thursday night, not Tuesday night. My mistake there. But yeah, that was awesome. And so you've already referenced Ethan Rose, and you called him the silent assassin. He has definitely been a go-to guy in high leverage situations, and typically coming in to get anywhere from 3 to 6 outs. Occasionally, like at Duke, where Nick Moran had a short start, he went as many as 4 innings, but that is more of a rare occurrence. But yeah, Ethan Rose there in the middle innings of Friday night's comeback, where ECU was trying to rally from that 7-2 fifth inning deficit. He came in after D'Lo gave you 4 or 5 outs, and really held the 49ers where they were to allow that big comeback.
yeah, he quietly gets it done, and this week he did it again. Him and Webb gave us the most innings out of any pitcher, 5 and 2/3 for both of them. But Rose didn't give up a run, not an earned run. He did give up a run. He didn't have a lot of people on base. His walk hits inning pitch was 1.24, 7 Ks, and 3 base on balls. You love that out of a freshman. I mean, he's doing exactly what is needed for this team. And to get it from a freshman, that's a bonus. So that's good stuff out of Ethan.
Anything you can think of pitching wise? The one other thing that I had, we talked about Ethan Norby and how it was his least productive start of the season, coming off his most productive start down at UTSA. So that was frustrating to see, but hopefully Ethan will bounce back
Yeah.
down at Tulane. But if you'd have told me going into the week that you would have such a start by Ethan Norby and that Sean Jenkins would only throw 30 pitches in 2 innings, I wouldn't have believed it.
No. Yeah, I would. So it's funny because going into the Charlotte weekend series, I was thinking they were going to do their normal rotation, and I thought the first game would be the most difficult, even with Ethan pitching to win. I felt confident about the other 2 games based on their Saturday and Sunday starts they've been doing, and I felt like we had enough pitching. But yeah, if you told me that Ethan only went 3 and 2/3, and gave up those runs and some dingers, and then 4 Ks and 2 base on balls, and we ended up winning that game. Yeah, and sweeping the series as you mentioned, I would be shocked. I would have thought it'd been a 2-1 at best at that point. So it just shows we can pick him up when he's not at his best, and he was not at his best, and hopefully he can go back to what he looked like against UTSA and get back on board there.
If you're tuned in on YouTube or Facebook, we'll be with you for almost 15 more minutes, so let us hear from you. Tell us your thoughts on the Pirates 4-0 week and where things are headed. Uh, Shifting over and taking a look at the offense, 53 runs on 56 hits. You had a heck of a week for guys like Davin Whitaker, Grady Linehan, who was named the American Conference Player of the Week. Um, like you said, tough to get that honor over Davin, but and
Yeah, Davin's sitting there
Grady
with us.
certainly very deserving.
Yeah, he definitely deserved it. Grady's a heck of a player from a lot of different aspects, and Davin is in his own right. I mean, but if you look at it, 6'11" average, 12 RBIs for Davin, and Grady had a 600 average, 8 RBIs. You could have went with either one of those guys for co-player of the American Conference this week. It's incredible. And then you had Jack Herring sitting there back there just, soaking it all in, hitting 538 and scoring all kinds of runs himself. And yeah, when you score 53 runs, there's going to be a lot of guys that have done a lot. So those three definitely.
Taking a look at Grady, I think out of those hits, what he had 4 extra base hits. Is that right? 2 doubles, a triple, and a home run.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
So
very
that was that
productive.
that was probably the differentiating factor, would be my guess.
What I'm finding, funny is the fact that we're hitting so many triples at Clark LeClaire. Davin even
Yeah,
had one. What's going on there?
yeah. And Jack was 7 for 13. Also had 6 walks, and so he reached base 13 out of 19 plate appearances.
Yeah,
I think what he drove in 6, scored 6, and
4 base on balls, a double, a homer. He was killing it too.
yeah, had a home run off the scoreboard there in that 11-run first inning on Saturday, and there was yeah,
Cole,
Seawall had 6 hits.
6 for 15 with 5 RBIs and 2 doubles. Yeah, he was another one. Really, the only
Jeff
person in
Sabater.
that grouping that did well last year has not done much was Austin Irby, and he was 2 for 11, 3 runs scored, 2 RBIs, 2 base on balls, and got hit twice. So I mean, he's still helping out a little bit, but he is definitely not hitting like he was late in the year last year.
Yeah, hopefully he'll come around the way we know he can. I think he's currently sitting right around 276 after going on, kind of a bit of a tear there for a few weeks, or for a couple weeks. Got up to what, close to 350 maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
But because we were like, yeah, you hadn't really seen the power numbers, but he's obviously hitting pretty well. I mean, he's at 350, but so
And
Jeff
then one
Sabat.
one we haven't talked about is Braden Burris, who was 5 for 15, 10 runs, 2 RBIs, 4 base on balls, 2 doubles, a homer. And yeah, he was there were so many guys that produced this week, but he does what he does. He's an elite table setter, and that's what he does.
Yeah, he certainly did some good things in the first 3 games of the week, but his Saturday game was tremendous. 3 hits, 2 doubles, including that hustle double to lead off the bottom of the first, where it was a very close play at second base. And coach referenced that in the post game, said, yeah, a lot of people won't think about this because of the 11-run inning, but you had Charlotte get the first 2 men on back-to-back hits, and then we were able to get out of that with
Yeah,
no damage, and then you have Braden lead off the bottom of the first with the hustle double, and that
yeah,
chopper down the left field line, and then to see him hit that homer into the left field jungle, and then a couple more that we haven't mentioned. At least I don't think we've mentioned Jeff Sabater. He had 2 hit games in games 2 and 3, 4 for 8 on the week, and then also Alex Boucher. He's playing a key role on the mound, as well as some time at first base, and then 11
the,
ABs over the
and the
last.
timely home run, right?
Yep, and there where I was joking with my dad, saying, those Charlotte fans weren't enjoying the LED light show there in the last 2 or 3 innings, but
Yeah, that's true. And going back to Jeff, I mean, Jeff was He was just a pesky player this weekend. He's like a horsefly. You can't get him off of you, and he made Charlotte work hard at every one of his plate appearances. They tried to play him this way. They tried to play him that way. He just hit it away from them. So great things out of Jeff this weekend. He did steal a base. He also got thrown out once, but yeah, good to see Jeff getting in there and producing a little bit. Like to see him run some more, but we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, he had a couple hits, like you mentioned, where they had a shift on, and he took it down the left field line, um, and then and then I know he had the first hit, or a hit in his first AB, I should say, on Saturday, where it was just perfectly placed, not hit as hard, but just right over the top of the bag, and the Charlotte infielders, their second and shortstop, nearly collided. Unfortunately, they did not, but they were not able to make a play on it. It went as an infield single after you had a couple of fairly well hit balls to start the inning.
Yeah,
You had two or three of those where Joseph Taylor. It looked like there as soon as he came in, it was just a 1-0 deficit in bases loaded, nobody out. He got Seawall on the swinging bunt. He got the force out at the plate, and I was like, well, hey, he's a ground ball now from getting out of it. He got the ground balls he needed. They were just well placed,
yeah,
and both of them were infield singles. So instead of being out of the inning, or maybe just holding the Pirates to one run, and then the floodgates open, and you have to make another pitching change. And then that first inning lasted something like 47 minutes.
it was forever.
You had 11 runs on 8 hits, and three 49er pitchers.
Yeah, yeah. That I was wondering if that inning was going to come to an end, but that did take a while. Now going back to the comeback we made, and I kind of stopped watching because I was like, I can't. I was watching them dink and dunk little hits and getting little infield hits here and there, and they weren't really hitting the ball there on a couple ABs, and I thought we could have got out of some situations. So I got frustrated, but with my, I'm superstitious when it comes to baseball, and I said I took a peek and saw we were making a comeback, and I was like, should I go back and watch it? No, no, I'm going to hold off. And I finally came back after we had put it away, but I didn't have the stomach for seeing what I was seeing that game.
Before we move on with some thoughts about what transpired in the American Conference and the standings over the weekend, and maybe a thought or two nationally, I did want to mention just how well these three games were attended, especially Thursday and Friday. Saturday's attendance was a little bit lighter, which wasn't all that surprising given the Easter weekend. But man, tremendous crowds on Thursday and Friday, and I was at the Friday and Saturday games, unfortunately able to get down on Thursday, but man,
Yeah,
Friday, wasn't quite a regional atmosphere, but there, you could. I told you this, and because you just kind of referenced that, you didn't necessarily think. I mean, just kind of you had your doubts as to whether we're going to have that ability to come back from down 7-2, and just being at the game, I kind of, despite not having done that really this year, I felt we would, and we just kept chipping away. And it's not like their starter Copper was really dominating us or anything. It's not like he was racking up a bunch of Ks. I just felt like our crowd and
the
our offense.
electricity. You
Yeah,
mentioned the electricity was a little bit different.
yeah, it was a very electric atmosphere. And I know Stephen Igo referenced he was taking some pictures on top of the Charlotte dugout, and he said that he could see it from that perspective in the Charlotte guys' eyes, even when they were able to get out of a jam or two, or maybe we just got one instead of a big inning, that you could gradually see it slipping away. But
Yeah. Yeah, real quick, talking about the rest of we'll talk about our conference, but I'm starting to see Conference USA, American, and then the Sun Belt. Looking at, three teams from the Sun Belt, three teams from the American, a few teams from the Conference USA, all looking good in the RPIs and making their moves. So those three conferences, they're going to be vying for those last spots for teams that don't win the conference championship or are not, in the 20s or 30s RPI wise. So pretty interesting how it's unfolded to this point.
And I was unable to make a graphic with the updated standings within the league, but I know East Carolina is 6-3, second place behind UAB. The Blazers have won 9 straight, and I guess 7 straight within the league since losing those 2 to the Pirates.
Yeah, and UAB's probably been the one team that surprised all the pundits when it comes to our conference. So they're first at 7-2. UTSA second with 6-3. We're tied with them 6-3. South Florida's 5-4. Wichita State's 5-4. Rice is 4-5. Those two teams are. You can see Rice getting slowly better with the new coach David Pierce. Not new coach, but a better coach, I should say. But then Tulane's 4-5. They're actually playing a little bit better. They didn't look like they were going to do much. Charlotte's down there at 3-6 after losing 3 straight. You can see how quickly this can change on a sweep. And
Yep.
Memphis has won 3 games, and then FAU, who I thought would do better, is at the bottom of the league at 2-7.
So to summarize what transpired over the weekend, you had East Carolina sweeping Charlotte. Obviously, you had Tulane taking 2 out of 3 at Wichita State, which was
Yeah,
definitely surprising to me, and you had Rice falling to UTSA in that series. The Roadrunners took 2 out of 3 after losing the opener there in Houston, and then UAB swept FAU, and so that meant with Memphis and South Florida, what was it, 2-1 Bulls?
yeah. Memphis and
Okay.
South Florida was South Florida 2-1. That's right.
Okay. Okay. So there you have a look around the American, and in this final couple minutes, any thoughts nationally? You had you finally
Oh,
had Coastal Carolina lose a game. South Alabama got them, but Coastal did take the series.
yeah. Some team, yeah. Nationally, UCLA obviously looks like the team to beat. I mean, they're 29-2. They just swept USC, a really good pitching staff at USC, who's now 27-6 after that sweep. Alabama's jumped up. They looking, really well. Georgia Tech out of the ACC and Florida State out of the ACC. North Carolina, yeah, they struggled a little bit. They played a tough Boston College team, really tough. But going back to Coastal Carolina, if you had told me they were 11-1 in the Sun Belt after losing the 3 pitchers they lost, I would have said no. I don't believe you, Bubba. But they are 23-8, 11-1, and doing their thing in the Sun Belt. Do they have a team that can get to Omaha? I'm not sure, but they show some resilience after losing 3 of the best pitchers in their conference and a couple in the country. So
Yeah, that's what Kevin Schnall said. He said if you'd have told him that they would have this record, he said if you'd have told him, because they're 11-1 in the Sun Belt, he said if we would have been told, with our full complement of pitchers, that we would be 10-2 through 4 weeks. Heck yeah, sign us up. Much less 11-1 without those arms. Just
yeah,
remarkable what that coaching staff's done. Um, and then Mississippi State dropping that series to Georgia in Starkville at Duty Noble. That surprised me.
yeah.
But you take a
I'll give
look.
you another team that's had some great wins this year, and that's why their RPI is 34. Is Liberty in the conference? They're 9-3 in the conference. They've taken they've beaten Florida Gators early, I believe, and yeah, they've had a. Let's see here. They beat West Virginia 1 out of 3. That was the one I was thinking of. West Virginia is a tough opponent. But yeah, I mean, what they've done over there at Liberty has kind of shocked me a little bit. But they've played very well, and they're up there in the RPI 34.
Yep, and they had a comeback win against the Hilltoppers over the weekend where they were trailing 5-1 in the ninth inning and hit a grand slam in the top of the ninth. I saw that on social media. That was a pretty cool call by their radio guy. But
Yeah, and real quick before I have to go, but Oregon State team to watch for Omaha. They right now they're beating Washington State 17-0, but they're 24-6, and they're independent, right? They don't really have a conference, but that's a team to watch in for Omaha this year. They have probably the best pitching staff in the country.
yep. Very quickly, in East Carolina softball report, the Pirates are 24-17, coming off a 2-2 week. So not the best of weeks, but you did take a series from Charlotte after dropping a game in the midweek down in Wilmington to the Seahawks 6-0, and you won games 1 and 3 with the 8-1 loss to Charlotte in Game 2 of that series. So there you have a look at ECU softball. Pirates 24-17, but and they still have their toughest series with North Texas and South Florida ahead of them. So that will do it for this edition of the show. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to like, follow, comment, subscribe, and share. We can be found on social media at Jungle Tales Pod on X, Instagram, also YouTube, and then simply search us on Facebook as well as Spotify, Jungle Tales, the Pirate Baseball Podcast, and you can find us. But that will do it for this 91st episode of Jungle Tales. We'll talk to you on Thursday night when we'll catch up with the former play-by-play voice of ECU baseball and now the long time, or at least several years under his belt with the Tulane Green Wave, and that is, of course, Corey Glore. But realize our players of the week: Davin Whitaker, 11 for 18, a home run, a triple, 12 runs batted in, also a walk. So on base, 12 out of 19 plate appearances and scored 6 runs. And then we deliberated quite a bit between Joe Webb, Ethan Rose, and Luke Payne. I'd already made the graphic for Joe Webb. He was very deserving, but it could have very easily gone to either of those other two gentlemen. But Joe Webb, 2 appearances, 4 2/3, 1 run on 5 hits, 7 Ks, no walks, and a hit batter. One of 3 Pirate pitchers, along with Luke Payne and Frank Saccone, making their first starts of the season. But that will do it for this somewhat abbreviated edition of This Week in Pirate Baseball. We'll talk to you on Thursday night as we preview East Carolina and Tulane. Until then, as always, go Pirates.